A gloomy octopus rests at the entrance of a den on the seafloor. A second octopus moves nearby. Without reaching out to grapple, the first animal gathers silt and shell fragments beneath its arms, draws its siphon under the web, and releases a forceful jet. A cloud of debris crosses the water and strikes the other octopus, which ducks and pulls back. It looks almost like an underwater argument, but the real question is more careful and more interesting. Did the octopus mean to hit its neighbor, and what could such a throw accomplish? The clearest evidence comes from wild gloomy octopuses, Octopus tetricus, living at unusually crowded sites in Jervis Bay, Australia. Octopuses are often described as solitary animals because many species normally hunt alone and maintain individual shelters. Yet solitary does not mean incapable of social behavior. When food and suitable den sites bring several octopuses into the same small area, they repeatedly encounter potential rivals, neighbors, and mates. Under those conditions, an animal built for flexible movement and rapid visual signaling may need ways to manage distance without turning every disagreement into a dangerous physical fight. The action researchers call a throw is not performed like a human throw. The octopus does not simply swing an arm and release an object. It first gathers material such as shells, algae, or loose silt within its arms and web. It then moves the siphon into an unusual position beneath the arm web and expels water forcefully as the material is released. The arms organize the direction, while the jet supplies most of the force. The result can travel several body lengths through still water. This distinction matters because an octopus already uses water jets and movable debris for ordinary tasks. It may clear material from a den, excavate a shelter, or dispose of food remains after eating. A shell pushed away from a den is not automatically a social projectile. To understand why octopuses sometimes hit one another, researchers had to separate routine housekeeping from throws that occurred during interactions. Peter Godfrey Smith, David Scheel, and their colleagues examined stationary underwater video recorded at the Jervis Bay site across several years. Their most detailed analysis used more than 21 hours of video from 2015. During that period, 4 to 8 octopuses could sometimes be visible at once, and the researchers recorded more than 1,500 interactions. They identified 102 throws. Some occurred during den maintenance, some after feeding, and some without an obvious immediate context. However, just over half occurred in an interactive or partly interactive context involving another octopus. That result alone does not prove targeting. In a crowded neighborhood, an octopus cleaning its den could accidentally send debris toward an animal nearby. The stronger evidence came from differences in how the throws were performed. Throws associated with interactions were more vigorous than throws linked mainly to den cleaning. They also involved silt more often, while den cleaning more often involved shells. 17 throws hit another octopus. Among throws in interactive and mixed interactive contexts, approximately 1/3 produced a hit. High-vigor throws struck another octopus more often than medium or low-vigor throws. The angle of release provided another clue. Most throws sent material forward between the first pair of arms. In a smaller number of cases, the octopus released debris through a different gap between the arms, or from beneath one side. These unusual arrangements changed the direction of the jet. About 43% of these unusually angled throws hit another octopus, compared with about 13% of the ordinary forward throws. This does not demonstrate conscious aiming in the human sense, but it suggests that some animals adjusted the pathway of the debris in ways that increased the chance of contact. Body appearance also changed with the action. Octopuses can alter color, contrast, posture, and skin texture rapidly. In the Jervis Bay observations, high-vigor throws were more often associated with uniform or dark body patterns, and throws made while the animal displayed a uniform pattern were more likely to hit another octopus. Earlier field research on the same species had connected darker displays with escalation during agonistic encounters. More recent work on other octopus species has also shown that social interactions can be accompanied by rich combinations of color patterns, postures, and movements. A throw, therefore, may not stand alone. It may form one part of a larger display that includes orientation, color, and arm position. Some of the most suggestive evidence came from repeated sequences. During one period in 2015, a female threw 17 times, and 9 of those throws hit other octopuses. 8 hits landed on a probable female occupying a nearby den. Several occurred while the two animals were reaching toward one another or briefly grappling with their arms. During another recorded sequence, a female threw 10 times, while a male in an adjacent den repeatedly attempted to mate with her. 5 throws hit him, and every one of her throws contained at least some silt. The male's reactions were especially revealing. In several cases he ducked. Early in the sequence, his movement followed the release. Later, he began to duck during the female's preparatory movements before the debris had been expelled. That pattern suggests that he may have learned, within the interaction, to recognize the beginning of the action and anticipate what was coming. The most cautious interpretation is that some throws help manage social space. A nearby octopus may be approaching a den, reaching into another animal's area, competing for shelter, or persisting with mating attempts. A jet of silt can interrupt that approach without requiring the thrower to leave its den and make full contact. Grappling with another octopus carries risks, because the animals possess powerful arms, hard beaks, and venom used for subduing prey. A distant, disruptive action may allow an animal to impose a boundary while reducing direct physical exposure. This makes the softest material surprisingly important. A hard shell seems like the most effective weapon, yet interactive throws more often involved silt. A cloud of silt spreads through the water, obscures vision, contacts a broad area of the body, and can force an approaching animal to pause or redirect. The function may therefore be less about causing injury and more about interruption. In that sense, the throw may operate somewhere between a physical obstacle and a social signal. Sexual interactions may be one important context, but the evidence does not show that every female throws at every unwanted male, or that throwing has one fixed meaning. Octopus mating behavior varies across species and individuals. Laboratory research on the South American octopus Robsonella fontaniana, for example, documented flexible combinations of contact, color displays, swimming and mounting during reproductive encounters. A different recent study of Octopus capricornicus identified a large repertoire of body patterns associated with approaches, contests, and mating. These studies do not prove why gloomy octopuses throw, but they support a broader point. Octopus social behavior is context-dependent and often combines several visible and physical actions. Octopuses also interact flexibly with animals of other species. Field research published in 2024 used 3-dimensional tracking to study day octopuses hunting with reef fish. Fish often influenced where a hunting group explored, while the octopus strongly influenced whether and when the group continued moving. Octopuses also sometimes used physical actions to control partners. This behavior involves another species and a different ecological situation, so it cannot be treated as evidence for conspecific throwing. It does show, however, that an animal usually described as solitary can adjust its behavior according to the actions of nearby partners. The mechanics of a throw are equally remarkable. The octopus must gather material with several flexible arms, hold it within the web, reposition the siphon, release the material, and coordinate the direction of the jet. Research on octopus anatomy has identified nerve pathways linking non-adjacent arms, providing possible routes for inter-arm signaling. Other work has shown specialized sensory receptors in octopus suckers that help the animal detect chemicals through contact. These studies do not reveal the intention behind a throw, but they help explain how an octopus can manipulate irregular material with extraordinary control while monitoring the surrounding seafloor. There are important limits to the evidence. The detailed throwing study concerned one species at a small number of high-density sites. Researchers observed only a limited number of hits, and they could not ask the animals what outcome they intended. Some intense interactions included throws into empty water. No octopus was observed immediately throwing back after being hit, and a hit did not directly trigger obvious retaliation. It is therefore inaccurate to say that octopuses have been proven to throw objects because they are angry, spiteful, or seeking revenge. Even the word targeted must be used carefully. A thrower may be oriented toward another octopus because it is already watching that animal. This orientation alone could increase accidental hits. Yet orientation cannot easily explain every pattern, especially the use of unusual arm gaps that redirected the material, the greater vigor of interactive throws, the increased use of silt, and the anticipatory behavior of some recipients. Taken together, the observations support the possibility that at least some throws are directed toward another individual and have a social effect. Captive observations should also be interpreted separately. Octopuses have not been domesticated, and behavior in an aquarium may be shaped by enclosure size, shelter availability, feeding schedules, and forced proximity. Moving shells or jetting debris in a tank does not automatically mean that an octopus is attacking a neighbor. Sudden increases in hiding, dark displays, repeated jetting or conflict can also reflect disturbance or stress. Aquarists should not provoke these reactions or place incompatible animals together merely to test the behavior, and welfare concerns should be assessed by qualified marine animal professionals. So why do octopuses sometimes throw objects at one another? The evidence suggests that the answer is not a single emotion and not a simple act of aggression. Some throws remove waste, some reshape a den, some may be accidental. But in crowded social situations, especially around shelter and mating attempts, a forceful jet of silt or shells may interrupt another animal, defend personal space, and influence what happens next. Return to the female at her den. She gathers the seafloor beneath her arms. Her skin darkens. The siphon disappears under the web, and the neighboring male begins to duck before the cloud is released. We cannot know exactly what the female experiences, but the movement is no longer just meaningless debris drifting through water. It is part of an interaction shaped by the body, the setting, and the behavior of another octopus. In an animal with no voice and no rigid limbs, even a cloud of silt may become a way of saying, "Stop there,"